Also on Team Sanity is Riley Gaines. You obviously know who Riley Gaines is by now. She was a collegiate swimmer, started to speak out and push back against having to compete against biological men, said the very controversial thing of that's not fair. I can never be faster or stronger or more of an athlete than a biological man. And one of the things that I love that Riley Gaines has used her voice for is to speak out about what's happening to girls in sports at all levels, and to use this following that she's built to try to bring people over to Team Sanity and Team Common Sense. And Lord knows we need it over here on the West Coast. On last week's show, we showed you the clip of a Oregon State track race where, shock of the century, the fastest person happened to be a biological boy who won in Oregon. Well, the same thing happened this Saturday at the Washington State track meet, where a biological boy crushed the girls in the 400-meter race. Here's a video. Yeah, and there were some other videos going around that showed the crowd booing. I'm sorry, I feel bad. Do I feel bad? Do I feel bad? Yeah, as I've said before, it's not about the biological male trans athlete. I don't want to make it about vilifying them. But I do want to make it about standing up for women. And I think in that moment, booing shows that the crowd really understood that that was not fair. I mean, if you've ever been in track or watched a track meet, 400 meters is just once around. To see that much of a gap between the first place finisher and the second place finisher is highly unusual when all of the people in the race are of the same gender. You'd be talking about a neck and neck fraction of a second difference. But that's obviously not the case here, because as talented, I'm sure, as those female athletes are who made it to the state track meet only to lose to a biological boy, they can never compete. They'll never be able to compete and win. Riley Gaines tweeted this out. Would you look at that? The thing that never happens happened again. Veronica Garcia just won the Washington State Championship in the girls 400 meter in total domination. In Washington and Oregon this past week, the fastest girl in each state has been a boy. No lives detected. It's an incredibly frustrating situation, and I like how she framed it that way. Would you look at that? The thing that never happened again. This happens more than people on the left who are propping up this insane ideology care to admit. But I would also point out, I don't care if it happens once or if it happens 1,000 times. It has happened too much. To have any young athlete put the work in and the time in and the training in to rise to be the best in their sport at their level, whether it's freaking elementary school or middle school or high school or college or pro, to do that, to rise to be the best, only to be beaten by someone who biologically you cannot compete with, is an absurd place to be. And it's offensive to girls and to women. I would just note that we've been talking about this issue quite a bit on the show. And honestly, that's because more and more people are speaking out about it. More and more people are joining Team Sanity on this issue. One of them is a dad named Brendan Wilson, whose daughter, we discussed this story last week, lost to a biological boy at the Junior Olympic track meet in Washington State, in Kashmir. And his daughter, who took second place, lost by 7 seconds in the mile run. 7 seconds. That's significant. And this is a 14-year-old girl who is the best of the best for her age among girls, but again, cannot compete against a biological boy who's bigger, faster, stronger. I think one of the devastating things about hearing Brendan Wilson, who was obviously on Team Sanity, but kind of an unwilling participant, I could tell from his face, he just was like, gosh, I got to speak out about this. All of you politicians, coaches, everyone, you're not going to say jack, so now it falls on me as a parent to speak out about this obvious nonsense. So we had him on Sundays with Subscribers this week, and he talked a lot about what his daughter went through, beating herself up. wondering, what could I have done? How hard could I have trained harder? When the answer is obviously no, you were the best of the best for girls, and then they raced you against a biological boy, which she found out, by the way, as the race was starting. She kind of realized, I don't think she knew for sure that she was racing against a boy, but it kind of physically was clear, and the parents, everyone, it was a complete surprise. It wasn't like she went into the race and went into the Junior Olympic track meet being like, yeah, I got to run against that trans athlete, and, you know, their times are so much significantly better than mine. Couldn't even prepare herself for it. Had no clue, blindsided, lost by 7 seconds when she should have won. So Brandon Wilson was on Sundays with Subscribers. I just want to play a clip for you of kind of what do we do from here, and his hope that other people will start speaking up about this nonsense. I know you said you're going to speak to elected leaders, and you're reaching out to the powers that be. For any who might be watching this, what would you say to them?
Well, I would just say I think that we need to make sure that women's sports is allowed to be protected as it's already been designed to be through previous legislation like Title IX, to allow women's sports to be fair so that women can compete against women on a fair playing field. And it's a sensitive topic with trans athletes and where they belong, but I feel like women and girls don't deserve the burden of where trans athletes belong. That's not something that I feel like women should have to take on. Women have worked really hard to get to the point where they have sports available to them throughout middle school, high school, college, and beyond at all levels. And that's being threatened by what's happening currently without controls on who is able to compete fairly. And I feel like we need stricter controls. High school and college in Washington, I think, should have the same types of rules that NCAA and smaller schools have, that there are criteria that has to be met before they're able to enter athletic competitions fairly.
Yeah. Amen, Brandon. I mean, I don't know if you might not feel like it now, but I'm telling you, what you're doing is important. What you're doing is really important. I know it's not easy, but it is. And I wish, as you said, you've talked to parents who are all like, we didn't want to say anything. But that's part of the problem, is reasonable people feel this way, but they don't want to say anything because it's scary to say something. But good for you.
And I would say one more thing that I have seen. We've had so many parents speak to us in person and through text messages, emails, Facebook, other social media, just saying, thank you for saying something. There's so many people that feel exactly the same way and are not feeling comfortable with coming forward unless other people do. And I know that we've had so many people want to support us and are currently supporting us in this ability to speak out. And I know that more people will come forward because the majority of people feel this way about this issue.
100%.
And that should count for something.
Yeah, again, that's Brandon Wilson. His daughter took second place at the Junior Olympic track meet in Kashmir, lost to a biological boy. He's now firmly in Team Sanity, speaking out about this nonsense, hopes other people will start to speak out about it too. You can watch our full interview on Sundays with Subscribers, undividedpod.com, undividedpod.com. We've kind of been couching some of those interviews on the Sunday show because, they're in-depth conversations and that's the best platform for them. Also, I'll just say, selfishly, it kind of reduces some of our fear of being deplatformed over sharing these interviews. We put out clips of it, obviously, but a lot of the interviews we've been doing on transgender issues, for instance, the kinds of things that YouTube just flags and Facebook flags and all of this. It's not that we're not brave, like we'll push this stuff out on those public platforms. But when we get into some of the more in-depth conversations about especially transgender youth, to be deplatformed over a legitimate conversation is a real risk. But I think as more people start to speak up, the risk of that goes down a little bit. So big thanks to Brandon Wilson for not only standing up for his daughter, but for young women, girls everywhere.